All right. Okay. Hello. Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome in. We'll give everyone a moment to get their bearings and get settled in here. Welcome in. Virtual networking discussion for the supervisors and government community of practice. We do have a little bit of an icebreaker for those of you that are in the session with us as we wait for our friends and colleagues here. But we like to be seasonal around here, so the icebreaker for today is just curious if anyone has a favorite holiday movie. And Patricia, you're welcome to share too as we get some chats. Yes, put it in the chat, everyone. I see a couple in here. Oh, here we go. Elf holiday. Yes, yes.
Oh,
But Patricia, do you have a favorite?
I like Home Alone,
Oh yeah, that's a good
right? I
one.
feel like I should be in that movie and just
Yeah,
pretend I have like so many siblings and
yeah, yeah. A full loud house is
full
always
house.
yeah. Wow, we're getting some good ones in here. I know someone put in Elf. That's one of my favorites.
Me too. I like that one
I love
too.
that one. The Grinch. My daughter just watched that for the first time recently. Miracle on 34th Street. We had that VHS when I was growing up, so that will always be like in my brain. That's a sweet one too. I love that one. Sound of Music. I don't know if I've ever seen that. This is on. That's embarrassing. It's a Wonderful Christmas. Love these. Emmett Otter's Jug Band. I'm not familiar with that one, Hazel. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Me too. That's
Yes, Sound of Music. Okay. Well, we've got a good list here. I'll need to check some of these off over the break here.
hmm
All right. Well, we're at 4:02 here, so thanks everyone for joining us and tuning in today. As a reminder, you are in the virtual networking discussion for the Supervisors of Government Community Practice Group. My name's Leah Anderson. I'm the Digital Marketing Director here at GovLoop, and I also get the added fun of hosting these each month. So if you're new here, welcome. And if you've been here before, thanks for coming back and spending your Monday afternoon with us. Seems like you all have already kind of figured this part out, but you are all encouraged and welcome to use the chat here to put in questions, comments. We'll get to as many as we can, but I also encourage folks, tell us what agency or department, organization you're from, where you're tuning in from. We want you all to connect with each other and hopefully, meet a new peer or colleague. So feel free to use that chat throughout the session today. We also do have a LinkedIn group for everyone here to continue the conversations, follow and connect with each other on LinkedIn. We want you to use that space as well. So for our speaker here today, we're joined by Patricia Pierre, who's a career coach at Howard County Government. We're thrilled to have you here. I know this is sort of one of your first experiences with GovLoop, so I'm so happy to have you here with us.
Thank
It's going to
you.
be a great discussion. But we can get right into it if you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so our topic today is, handling negativity, naysayers, in the workplace, but particularly with the context of being a supervisor or manager. So we like to kind of start a little bit broad here. And the first question is kind of setting the foundation for why we should even care about this. So,
hmm
how can persistent negativity within a team, organization, department, whatever it may be, impact public service delivery and trust in government institutions. So really big picture, just thinking and talking about how negativity is going to, impact our work that we're doing at government. So
hmm
right there, Patricia.
All right. From my experience working in like public education, workforce development, and community-based program, I feel like persistent negativity within a team directly affects like how you're giving service and the quality and the community trust, which is very important. And for example, in public service, employees are often the face of government institutions. So when negativity is normalized, it can lead to those employees being disengaged and also the service that they provide become inconsistent. And also it reduced the how people respond to the needs of students if you're working with students or families and community members. Currently, as a career coach, so I'm supporting high school students, especially high risk youth and
Mhm.
immigrant families. I've seen how when the morale of employees is pretty much down, students are not as engaged, they don't participate because it's just like that psychological thing. If you're not engaged, why should they be, right? And usually it happens when a team member feel like they're being unheard. Like if
Mhm.
they bring something to, let's say, their supervisor, manager, and that person is resistant to change or even listening because they're the people here working with those students. So it can transfer to the people that they serve in return. And the institution itself becomes a little bit undermining. And over time, erodes the public confidence. Like these kids, they're just not going to trust you. The
Mhm.
families, whoever their support is, they're not going to trust you, right? And that's what we rely on heavily when it comes to government services for support.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. And the idea of what you're talking about, like the negativity transfers, it's so true. It's kind of like the
Mhm.
negativity is a little contagious. It's like
Yeah,
once it's out there, p other people are picking up on it, taking it from them.
exactly.
Yeah, so that's a helpful way to frame it too.
And it's just it's just like, you might be not engaged and you're still a positive person,
Hmm.
but youth, right? They don't see it like that. We're adults, right? We can kind of make the difference, but to them, it's like, all right, you're being negative. Why should I worry about what you're talking about here? They can't make some can, not that, at that age they can, but for the most part,
Hmm.
it's just like you bring that negativity when you're not engaged because kids, like we know, it's you have to be engaged. You have to, that's how you show that you care. They don't know who we are, right,
Hmm.
as adults, but that little trust, that little gap that you have, it's really quick and their attention span is like so short. So you
Yeah.
have to come very positive for them to make that difference between, oh, that person is being negative or that person is just not engaged.
Right, right. Yeah, fine line there. Fine line. Okay, so moving on here, what unique challenges do government supervisors face when addressing negativity during periods of organizational change or policy shifts? So, yeah, speaking specifically to, this group, this audience,
Mhm.
what are those unique challenges for government supervisors? Like, what are we looking at? What might be different for them versus someone, working in private sector as a supervisor or manager?
So we often have to implement change while operating with like a rigid structure,
Mm.
right? And limited resources and high accountability standards. So pretty much if in my work, it's just like we have a lot of pilot development. We have to pivot and adapt so quick because, rules change, or they might say, oh, you have to do it that way. Then we come back with the state and it's like, oh, no, we need this. So you have to be very flexible, as I say. So during program, for example, rollouts, we have to pretty much, if we're launching, let's say we're launching like a intensive career pilot for high risk, like that I mentioned prior. I've seen how uncertainty around funding, because funding is a big one, policy timelines and role clarity can heighten anxiety and resistance among staff. Like they're not gonna see it because that's the big picture, right? Because when you bring in change, people are like, what? Why do I have to pivot and adapt? But they're
Mhm.
not thinking in the back end that we have to follow funding guidelines,
Mhm.
policy timelines. It's a little tricky to, and I understand that, staff can be very reluctant to change. Everybody is, right? But you have to keep in mind, we have funding to worry about,
Mhm.
policies to worry about, and we have to balance that transparency with incomplete information sometimes while also managing the diverse stakeholders expectations, for example. So many government employees have long tenure and they have like institutional knowledge, which can create resistance when change feels like imposed to rather than we're collaborating. So it's very tricky to explain, but I can see where they're coming from too. And it's like, all right, why do I have to keep on pivoting and adapting? That doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense, kind of thing. But in the
Yeah.
back end, we have to report to somebody, right?
Yeah. And going back to our first question too, we still, government supervisors are still going to have this added pressure of keeping these services running and to certain standards and
Hmm.
expectations. So there is a lot going on here. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. We move along. So, our next question is, how can leaders balance the need to maintain morale without resorting to toxic positivity, especially in high stakes government environments? So, I'll be curious to hear some feedback and comments from our attendees today too, just anecdotally kind of in this space, because I do think this is something that is sort of easy to step into. You're like, okay, let's nip negativity in the bud.
Hmm.
We're moving past it. And some folks might tend to overcorrect
Hmm.
and only focus on the positive and really try to snuff out any discussions of negativity. But we know that that's not realistic. It's not sustainable. That's not really authentic. It's not transparent. So, what do we do? How do we find that middle area of, we don't want negativity to be pervasive, but we also don't want to overcorrect?
Yeah. So I've learned that to maintain morale, it doesn't mean that we have to minimize challenges, right?
Mhm.
Instead, if you create that space for honesty, like that honest dialogue, while you keep the team grounded in purpose and solutions, like
Mhm.
you can't. So I see negativity, and if you don't have any solution, it's just not gonna work, right? So
Mhm.
drawing from my background in like I also have a background in psychology and mental health. I prioritize pretty much validating concerns without
Mhm.
allowing that negativity to stall progress because you
Mhm.
have to connect. It's just like they tell you HR, you have to have that empathy, you have to have all these things. So that's very important. So when you're leading instructional, let's say I led when I used to be a child development specialist, so I led an instructional design team for those little babies, right? So I always encourage them to be reflective. All our conversations have to be respectful and reflective, which is
Mhm.
focusing on that what's within our control. Like we don't have control over that, let's not do it. We have control over that, let's try that. Is it always going to work?
Mhm.
I don't think so, right? But it's having that you model transparency every time, everywhere you go, which sounds easy, right? But when you're under pressure, it's just like,
Mhm.
how do we do it? We need everybody to be on board. You have to take everybody's like concern, and sometimes you can't make it your own. Otherwise, if you're leading, we're in trouble.
Mhm.
Everybody's going down at the same time. So yeah.
Yeah, to put it plainly, yes, exactly.
Really,
Yeah.
we're all going down together,
Yeah.
and it's not fair.
Yeah. I have one follow-up question for you there. You're saying, how important it is to validate concerns, but can you talk about that very practically? One, what might that look like in a very, simple sort of prompt or conversation? How can you validate someone's concerns, but without like going down the rabbit hole of like, sort of reinforcing it? I'm curious if you can kind of expand on that a little bit.
So pretty much the mission's alignment, how you reinforce accountability, right? It's just sometimes it's a leader's, a supervisor's job role to make sure that we avoid that toxic positivity because it does exist by respecting the fact that everybody has like a different lived experience, like or lived experiences, right? That's how you get to know people. That's how you get to see how they think,
Mhm.
what they think about, and how your approach might not work for them. Because you also have to be aware of culture. Like a team, we have different cultures. You can't say we're following this without making sure that, all right, we know who we hired.
Mhm.
Do we respect certain way they see things, they
Mhm.
understand things? So you have to be able to really read the whole room, right? To
Mhm.
see who you're working with. And especially when it's time like high stakes government environments, you can't really be that sensitive to things, but you also have to be aware of your team, which in return you have those outcomes that are directly impacting the work that they do for youth in that case and the families too. So you have, it's a whole lot of thing that, teams that they don't, it's not that they don't think about it, but they don't see it. But as a supervisor, you have to be aware also of every single piece is around. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot to manage, and it's a big topic, right? Because it has so
it's,
many implications on how things are getting done.
yeah.
Okay, so next question for you. What strategies or feedback frameworks have proven effective in re-engaging employees who are resistant to change? I think this is almost going to hop back to a couple of things you've said prior, but I think, these practical frameworks that
Mhm.
folks might be able to put in practice right away. What do you recommend there?
So what I recommend, it's just like resistance sometimes is because staff they feeling excluded, overwhelmed, uncertain, right? They're not from unwillingness to do the job, but it's finding a way to re-engage them. And it's just you have to create models such as like needs assessment to understand like their concern, like capacity gaps, SOPs. It's funny, I didn't know about SOPs until I had to do that. I had to create things which are developed during program rollout. So everybody who's part of the team, they're part of that thing. Now we're not going to require them to write SOPs, but
Mhm.
being part of what goes into those SOPs can clearly make you like feel like effective, right? Goal oriented feedback, like when you see how they can measure outcomes, like sometimes we're talking about SMART goals and people are like, what are you talking about, what is this? Even now sometimes I'm like, oh, can we go back, can we do this, that? So it's just you have to make inclusive decision making. You're inviting the staff to put their input during the planning phases, and I feel like it's not gonna make sure that employees are no longer going to be resistant to change, but having that part, that understanding of everything that's been done as a leader, you will motivate employees to reconnect with the why, which is very important when it comes to that transition phase.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because we do in this group, we do talk about change management quite a bit, and then we also talk about re-engaging teams and motivation. So it's all related from one topic to the next too. And we'll share some more resources tomorrow about the change management piece, but that is something that just is always going to be tricky, especially in this space.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's definitely something we've heard before for sure.
Yeah.
We are already at our last question here, so we will have
Okay.
time to take questions from attendees today,
Okay.
for sure. So if you have something on your mind, feel free to share it in the chat today, and we'll kind of get into the questions that we can. Jason's telling us he loves SMART goals, so thank you for sharing.
Okay.
I do too. I love a good acronym anyway, so
I know, right?
that one has stuck around for a reason.
Forever.
Yeah. So our last plan question for now is just how can supervisors, oh, I like this one. Yes. How can
Mhm.
supervisors identify early warning signs of negativity before it escalates and starts undermining the work of the team? So this one's I think is always interesting, and we can get into this a bit. The question is, yes, we're asking what are those things to look out for, but I'm really curious, we can expand on this too, because I think this is very personality driven.
Mhm.
So I'll let you start because you're our expert, but we can definitely dig into this part.
Right. Changes in communication patterns,
Mhm.
disengagement during meetings, increase like people are not engaged, resistance and collaboration. That could be a real like early sign, early warning signs. And it's just you have to monitor that, right? Closely, especially when it comes to periods when you're transitioning or when there's a lot to get done in a short period of time. So what
Mhm.
you do, it's check-ins. you have to check in, you have to have reflective conversations, you have to also observe team dynamics across sites and projects. You have to make sure that I know we usually you hire because you know each individual's expertise, but
Mm.
making sure that those experts go where they need to be plays a big role. And if you don't, if one person is working on something personality wise, it's just not working. You have to be careful of that and encouraging open feedback without fear. As a leader, just like we're telling employees we have a feedback form, share your feedback, we also have to also model that, because think about it, right? Even if we say it's anonymous, people are like, are you sure? Because they're
Yeah.
government, they might find a way to see who typed. It just, even if we don't do that, but we're human. You have to model exactly what you want to implement too. Whereas you doing those forms, you in staff meetings, you open up like those questions about how's this doing. I feel like you're honest, right? You're human, although you're leading, but they also have to see how you are feeling about certain projects. Sometimes you have to pivot, like I mentioned, pivot and adapt very quickly. And as a
Mm.
supervisor, you're like, I don't know what we're doing, but you're going to try it. You have to be honest when you don't know what you don't know. And that's
Mhm.
why you have a team of amazing people who can actually support you and create that great project.
Yeah, agreed. And I think going back to the warning signs, I'm curious if they're almost different buckets because I think to your point, you'll have people who their communication has changed and maybe they're just kind of short and like you're saying, just not engaged. But can you speak to even like body language? Like what are you doing when you're sensing someone who's in a meeting, either in person or virtually, just is not tuned in or maybe multitasking? Like from a supervisor standpoint, how is that something you can address directly? Like, what would you do in that scenario?
Something we do like a little breathing exercise before every staff meeting. We're like, all right, everybody, put everything, electronics, all those stuff away. And we
Mhm.
have like a breathing timer kind of thing. Of course, not everybody can meditate, right? It's hard.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes you tell me go meditate, and I'm like, I can do that. My mind is running.
Hmm.
Making it very like, all right, you don't have to shut everything down. You don't have to close your eyes, but we have that whole breathing tech away kind of thing. You
Hmm.
do it, you try it, and it actually recenter people. And you
Hmm.
telling them share your successes, things that are not successes to you. Opening the floor to honest conversation is also always the way to go, right? Because we don't know what people are dealing with, right? This morning, you probably had a bad morning. I don't know. So asking them
Hmm.
to focus when you don't know what's going on. And if you see it, you pull them aside one on one at the end of everything, having that honest conversation like, what's going on? How can I support you? How can we do better? What did you like about the meeting? And pulling everybody one on one, because in groups, sometimes people don't want to say certain things,
Yeah.
but that one on one check in is
Hmm.
very important. And that's how you get the feedback on how to create better staff meeting, for example,
Hmm.
right? That are effective, that we get the work done, and that everybody's involved.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, it seems like the one-on-one check-in comes in as such a valuable tool on so many different topics for supervisors and managers. And I think,
Mhm,
we recently had a discussion about feedback too, and how you can elicit
mhm,
that more in one-on-one sessions and just trying to invite that conversation in. So I think even with folks that tend to be negative, a lot of the times or only can see challenges instead of opportunities is sort of opening that question in a one-on-one. Like, it seems like your feedback is often why, a new project or idea won't work. Is there something that
mhm,
would help you reframe that and look at it from a different angle? Because I think sometimes, even personally, it's easy to just slip into sort of a negative
mhm.
headspace and like you don't even realize it's happening sometimes. So I think we can give, our peers the benefit of the doubt sometimes too,
Exactly.
like, hey, do you need a moment? Is there anything I can do to help kind
Yeah,
of reframe these things, especially when you're busy? Everything seems like a challenge, not an opportunity. So makes a
exactly.
lot of sense too.
Yeah, it's just that one-on-one really works. You
Mm.
listen. You have to have a plan. Yes, it's like you said, it's easy to go into that negative loop, but at the same, what would you like to see? What could we come up with? We just reframe it and rephrase it so that in our mind we're like, oh, okay, I never thought about that.
Mhm.
You get that little push. Like, what would you like to see? Like, okay, this is not working, I understand, but what would you like to see? And it's
Mhm.
hard, like you said, when you're really, it's just, and the one-on-one I see in the chat, I'm looking also in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just you have to have a way to schedule them. So what I do is pretty much everybody will have them on a particular day. So it doesn't feel like, ooh, you're being called
Yeah.
because you did something wrong. It's like it's everybody has a one-on-one check-in. Everybody is bringing something to the team. At the end of the day, everybody's hired for a particular reason, for a particular expertise, right?
Mhm.
And it's that creativity that's important too. It's like, all
Mhm.
right, you don't want to see this. What can you do? Let's try this. And you put that input into every project that you have to do, which is very key.
Yeah, I can't remember what month it was, but I know it was just recently this fall. We did one of these sessions on effective
Mhm.
one-on-one meetings. So we can link back to that too, just to give folks, it's a good resource for just understanding like the options around structuring those meetings, setting up a good
Mhm.
cadence. So to Eve's point, it doesn't feel like they're only happening when, you're at some sort of
Something.
inflection point and something bad's happening. Because yeah, then we all have a sense of dread
You're
around
like, ooh.
one-on-one. You're like, what did I do? But I think it is so important, and we might be belaboring the point here now, but I think a lot of the times with fear or with negativity, it's rooted in fear, right? Like,
Mhm.
and a lot of people might not feel comfortable kind of getting to that root cause, that fear element in a group setting. That has to be something where, you're feeling safe in the conversation. You're not going to be, in trouble for voicing those opinions or that fear, but often that's really not going to happen in a big group. So that one-on-one continues to be important for us.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is important. Yes.
Let's see. I just looking at the comments really quickly before we close today. And Eve has a good point. I think initial resistance is very common, so it's not necessarily like, always going to be a complete barrier, but some I think managers and supervisors can kind of learn to expect that at the beginning of change that you might get this wave of negativity as something's getting started, but to Patricia, to your point earlier, like we got to lead through it because otherwise we're all going down.
We're
Um,
all.
we're all going down. But I think with the right tools and resources, it
Yeah.
is a skill you can practice to lead through that. And hopefully this session will help a little bit with that too.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but any,
as a lead or a leader, supervisor, manager, right? You are a reflection of your staff. And that says a lot. You can't lead without having a great team. And usually, of course, you have a supervisor, we have that hierarchy thing going on,
Mhm.
but it's just your team. It says a lot about who you're working with, who's with you, who are the experts, right? Because sometimes we know what we know, we don't know what we don't know. And to have that and to make it like an open conversation and an open and safe space, just like in school, like the person who said, yeah, you're being called into the
Yeah.
principal's office, is that same thing. It's a team. We have to lead. You have to put your input. It's about all of us.
Yeah, agreed. And I know we're right at time here, but I did want to address this last comment. Maybe we can do this quickly. Someone who's had the same job for quite some time and has now faced a lot of change this year and is very angry and upset. I want to address this one just because I want to get your input, Patricia. Like when it is like a heightened emotion, because we know the situation where maybe it's just like little comments and a bad
Mhm.
attitude, but what can someone do when to Blaze, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, when it's just escalating a bit.
It's about pretty much I can see like it's the habit, it's that routine. 15 years, right? I'm doing the
Mhm.
same thing. What you just have to explain. It's everything evolves, right? Every project is gonna need that creativity. How do you remain creative? It's by seeing that things can't be the same way 15 years ago,
Mhm.
right? It changes overnight. And it's the fact that your employee will accept change and accept to bring that creativity into the changes that are to come or that are coming. Once you're able to do that, not that it's going to erase like how you're angry, you're negative about it, but pretty much you have to also accept the fact that some people, it's hard. Change is hard, especially depending on that, what they're dealing with, right? What we're seeing here, a lot of people losing their jobs, that fear, like, am I going to lose my job? Like all that plays in, Hazel said empathy. That's where empathy comes. You have to understand and also lead while respecting whatever the person is feeling. But you have to keep telling your staff, I want to see that creativity, meaning I'm open to see what you can bring, not me telling you what to do. Because at the end of the day, sometimes we don't know what's
Mhm.
needed, right? We're like expecting, or not even expecting, we're just like hoping the staff can tell us sometimes what to do too, because they're the experts too.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and there's just so much around change that's truly rooted in personality. And I think this is why it's such a tricky supervisor and managerial topic because you you can't coddle every single, and I don't mean to sound dismissive in that sense,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
so hard to manage to each person's unique reactions to
Personality, yep.
change. And to Hazel's point, that's why it is draining. It's like you're trying so
Mm-hmm.
hard, but depending on how big your team is, it's absolutely unsustainable. So I
Mm-hmm.
think, a lot of what you've shared of, reframing opportunities instead of
Mm-hmm.
challenges, bringing that creativity into your job now, not what it was 5, 10, 15 years ago, is a really helpful way to think about it. Um, and now we're over time, which we knew was going to happen. So thanks everyone for bearing with us for these extra 2 minutes. This is a deep topic. Please keep the
Thank
conversation
you.
going. You have the LinkedIn chat. We'll send a follow-up email tomorrow. You can talk to us there. If you replied to those emails, they will come straight to me so I can help. Um, but we won't meet again until the new year, later in January. So I just want to say to this group, thank you so much for being here
Thank
with us throughout the
you.
year. This is a wonderful resource. So we appreciate everyone's time and all your hard work in public service this year. Patricia, thanks so much for talking with us
Thank
today. It
you.
was insightful as always, and it was a real pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah,
So
it was a
hopefully we'll do this
pleasure.
again
I
next year.
know. Thank you. Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, and we'll see you next year, everybody.
See
Thank
you
you.
next year. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.